is a woman, and she's speaking about you right now, not in the usual way people speak when they're bored or restless. No, her tone is different. Her words are lined with memory, with moments she remembers about you, ones you may not even recall yourself. She speaks of how you once made her laugh when she was quietly breaking inside. How your silence, oddly enough, said more than all the words others could string together. She's having a deep conversation, not just about you, but with your essence. And you don't even know it yet. You see, we often go through life unaware of the ripples we leave behind. In monasteries, we are taught, the wind knows where you've been, even if your footprints fade. In this woman's voice, there is something sacred. She is not blaming. She is not longing. She is simply remembering. And in her remembering, she is asking questions. Did he know how much I believed in him? Does she still walk with the same hope she once carried so bravely? What happened to the dream he once whispered about? The one he said he was too afraid to chase? These are not idle musings. These are spiritual threads that weave the unseen fabric of human connection. And so I ask you, dear soul, have you ever paused to consider what stories are being told about you when you're not in the room? Because what people say when you're gone, that is where truth lives. Not in flattery, not in gossip, but in the soft aftermath of your presence. I remember a time long ago when I was just beginning my monastic journey. There was an elder monk, quiet, with kind eyes. One day, I overheard a conversation between him and another monk about me, not criticism, not praise, but something more powerful. He said, "That boy carries a sadness behind his smile. One day, he will learn that even sadness can be a lantern." I was stunned because he saw through me, and more importantly, he spoke about it when I wasn't even there. That moment changed me. Not because I felt exposed, but because I felt witnessed, and perhaps that is what this woman is doing for you right now. She's witnessing you, in a world that often prefers noise over understanding. There's more to this conversation she's having. It's not just about the past. She's wondering what's next. Not because she wants something from you, but because she still sees something in you. A spark, a whisper, a path you were once meant to follow but may have strayed from. Her words echo with gentle worry. I wonder if he still hears his soul's voice. Does she still dance in the morning light like she used to, even when no one is watching? These are not romantic questions. These are spiritual questions. She is holding your spirit in her words, not clinging, not fixing, just holding. And that, dear heart, is rare. Sometimes we lose sight of our worth, not because we are unworthy, but because the world moves too fast to remind us. So let me ask you now, have you forgotten the weight of your own soul? Have you dismissed your journey? Thinking no one notices? Because someone does. And their voice, right now, is trying to remind you that you are not invisible. That what you've given, however quietly, mattered. Even if it wasn't acknowledged in the moment. Even if no one said thank you. This woman's conversation isn't a random thought, it's a soul memory. A moment where your existence shifted the course of someone else's day, or even their life. And now, the universe is nudging you to remember who you truly are. But this is only the beginning, because what she says next might just be what your spirit needs to hear most. She said something else, not in words you could record or replay, but in a tone so sincere that even the wind paused to listen. She said, "I don't think they realize how many people they've helped just by being themselves." Imagine that. You, not doing anything grand, not standing on any stage, just being you. And yet, somewhere out there, someone is still thinking about the way you once sat beside them in silence because words were too heavy that day. They remember how you smiled at them when the world had forgotten to. They remember how your eyes held space for them when their own reflection had become unfamiliar. You thought those moments were small, but she didn't. To her, they were monumental. They were anchors in a stormy season. You know, in our temple, we often talk about karma as not just action, but intention. Not the big visible things, but the energy you leave behind in a room, the unspoken comfort you offer without even realizing. That is what she's remembering. She's not just speaking about what you did. She's honoring who you were becoming while you did it. And now she's wondering, do they even know how powerful their kindness was? Have they forgotten their own light? She's not asking with sadness, but with hope. You see, the kind of conversation she's having, it's not about closure. It's about continuation. She's sensing that your journey is not finished. That maybe, just maybe, you're standing at the edge of something beautiful again. But your head is too full of doubt to notice. I want to tell you something now, not as a monk, but as someone who has been humbled by life more times than I can count. Sometimes the voice that brings us back to ourselves doesn't come from within. It comes from someone remembering us when we've forgotten ourselves. That woman, whoever she is in your story, may be that voice right now. Her spirit is speaking, even if her mouth is silent. Even if years have passed. Even if distance has replaced closeness. Her thoughts have found their way through the spiritual ether, and they're reaching you now, not by coincidence, but by cosmic design. And I believe you were meant to hear this today, because maybe lately you've been questioning your path. Maybe the silence has become so loud that you've started to wonder whether your story is still unfolding, or whether the pages have stopped turning. But let me remind you, the soul never stops evolving, even in quiet seasons. It's preparing, even in loss. It's learning, even in waiting. It's weaving. So when someone speaks your name with love, across space and time, like she is now, it's not just a memory. It's a summoning, a spiritual tap on the shoulder, a whisper from the universe that says, "Wake up. You are still needed." Your presence is still a poem the world wants to read. And do you know what she said toward the end of the conversation? She said, "I hope they find their smile again, the real one, the one that wasn't trying to prove anything." Isn't that beautiful? Not, "I hope they succeed." Not, "I hope they finally learn." But, "I hope they smile again." That is love. That is spiritual friendship. That is someone seeing you through a lens most people have forgotten how to use. So now the question is no longer, what did she say? The question is, are you ready to respond? Not with words, but with your presence, your healing, your return to yourself, because what comes next in your story depends on what you choose to remember about who you are. And just as she once held space for you, perhaps now, it's time for you to hold space for yourself. But before you rush into action, let us stay in this stillness a little longer, because there's more, much more. The conversation she's having, the one that's moving through the ether right now, is just getting deeper. And in the next moment, she says something that changes everything, something that pulls on the very thread of your soul's purpose. She said something next that I've been holding gently in my own heart ever since I heard it. She said, "There's something different about them. I always felt like they were meant for more. Not more success, but more meaning." And then she paused. You know the kind of pause I mean. Not the awkward kind, but the sacred kind. The kind of silence that makes space for truth to enter. Then she added, "It's not that they forgot who they are. I think they just got tired of explaining their heart to people who only listened with their ears." That pierced something in me. Because we've all felt that, haven't we? The exhaustion of being misunderstood, of offering pure intentions to people who were too distracted, too guarded, too wounded to receive them. And slowly, over time, you begin to retreat. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started wondering, does it even matter anymore? Let me tell you something, dear soul. Yes, it matters, even when it goes unnoticed, even when it is misunderstood, even when it's met with silence. Your kindness doesn't vanish when it's ignored. It just plants seeds in invisible soil. And sometimes the person you touched won't even realize what you gave them until much later. Maybe not until they sit across from someone years later and say, "There was someone. I never told them, but they changed me." That's what this woman is doing now. She's realizing not just what you were, but what you meant, and what part of you still lingers, quietly guiding her when no one else is around, slowly, hands folded behind back. You see, in the monastery, we don't measure time in hours, we measure it in presence, and presence, my dear one, leaves a lasting echo. Even in your absence, your soul can still speak. Her conversation proves that. She remembers the way your energy entered a room, how your laughter, even when you were hurting, made others feel safe. She remembers how you once sat with her when she was unraveling and didn't try to fix her. That's rare because most people try to fix pain. Only the wise sit with it. She's not just talking about the old you, she's honoring the true you, the version of you before the disappointments, before the pressure, before the armor. And now she wonders, do they even know how powerful they were before the world taught them to hide? Let me ask you that same question. Have you started hiding too? Behind busyness? Behind fear? Behind a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes? It's okay. Truly. There's no shame in that. Even monks must unlearn their disguises. But when someone speaks your name with the love she just did, it's a sign. A call. Not to go back, but to come home. To yourself. In the scriptures, there's a phrase we repeat often. The lotus blooms not because it avoids the mud, but because it accepts it. Maybe you've been trying to stay clean, untouched, unbothered. But that's not how a soul grows. You grow because of the mud, the confusion, the aching silences, the wrong turns, the wounds that made you softer, not harder. She sees that in you now, and her voice, even if it's only a whisper carried on spiritual winds, is telling you, don't let this world convince you that your softness was a mistake. It wasn't. It was a gift. It is a gift. But you've forgotten. And that's okay, because sometimes we need someone else to remember us back into our truth. And that is what this woman is doing. Not for her sake, but for yours. She is passing the torch back to you. So, what will you do with it? You don't need to run. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to return. But, return to what? That's what she says next. And when she says it, it will awaken something ancient. In your soul, something you've always known, but were too tired to believe. She said it quietly, but with a strength that only comes from a heart that has already broken and rebuilt itself again. They were always meant to guide people, not because they had all the answers, but because their pain taught them how to walk with others through the dark. That was it. The part of the conversation that felt less like a statement and more like a remembering. She wasn't praising your perfection. She was honoring your resilience, not the loud kind that shouts from mountaintops. The quiet kind, the one that endures in silence, bends but does not break, weeps but still keeps walking. She remembers the way you used to listen, not just to people, but to life. The way you'd notice the changing sky, how you'd pause at the sound of wind rustling through trees, how you once told her, even the silence has something to say. And she wonders now, have they stopped listening? Not with ears, but with the soul. Because when life becomes too noisy, when schedules take over spirit, we start missing the sacred. We forget that guidance doesn't always come from books or plans. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a child's laugh, a stranger's kindness, a familiar scent that brings a long-lost memory back to life. And this woman, in her deep conversation, is not reminiscing because she's stuck in the past. She's speaking because she still believes in your future. She believes you've still got something the world needs. Not an achievement, not a product, but a presence that can only come from someone who has seen both light and darkness and chose to remain kind. In the monastery, I once sat with a man who had lost everything. He was angry, bitter, hollow. He looked at me and said, "I used to have purpose. Now I only have pain." I didn't try to fix him. I just listened. But after a long silence, I said something I didn't plan to say. Sometimes when the fire takes everything, it's not punishment. It's preparation. The ash clears the ground for something even more sacred to grow. Tears welled in his eyes. Not because of the words, but because something woke up inside him. Not the past version of himself, but a truer version. And that's what this woman is hoping for you. That this moment, this very breath, becomes your awakening, because she sees something rising in you again. A quiet fire, a light that's been sleeping under layers of doubt and delay. She said, "They always had a way of making people feel seen. I just hope they haven't forgotten how to see themselves." We forget, don't we? We forget to see ourselves when we're too busy surviving. When you're always pouring into others, you forget that your own cup deserves to be full too. But what if, just what if, this conversation was your refill? What if the words she spoke were not just about the past, but a bridge, guiding you back to the part of yourself you left behind when life got heavy? That sacred part still lives within you. It hasn't abandoned you. It's only been waiting, patiently, lovingly, for your return. And this woman's remembrance of you is not meant to pull you back into old versions of yourself. It's meant to remind you of what's always been true, even when you doubted it. She said, "I just want them to know. They were never ordinary to me. They were a mirror. They showed me pieces of myself I was too afraid to see." Ah, that's the truth, isn't it? You were a mirror, a reflection, a soft place in a hard world, and you still are. The world needs that now more than ever. But before you step forward again, before you answer the call, there is one last thing she says, and it's the most important of all. A final message, a gentle prophecy, a sacred truth that could shift your entire path if you're ready to receive it. She wasn't finished yet. As the wind brushed gently past her, like a spirit leaning in to listen too, she looked out over the horizon and said something that silenced even the birds for a moment. I think they're about to enter a chapter of their life where peace becomes their loudest power. Not validation, not proving, not chasing, but peace. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. The kind that settles like warm sunlight on skin. Not always noticed, but deeply healing. She said, "I hope they stop trying to convince people who never understood them. I hope they give up trying to explain their soul to those still stuck in survival. Because you were never meant to shrink yourself into what others could easily digest. Your depth isn't a flaw, it's a calling. Your gentleness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your silence isn't absence, it's presence." And she feels it, that the part of you that once felt like too much to the wrong people is about to become everything to the right ones. This woman wasn't just remembering your past. She was blessing your future. She spoke of it like prophecy, not just possibility. She said, something is returning to them. Not something external, not a person or a place, but something sacred inside them that they thought they had lost forever. Your softness, your awe, your unshakable sense of purpose. That sense that even when everything is falling apart, something within you knows the way. It's not gone. It's only waiting for you to become still enough to hear it again. You've carried so much, haven't you? So many unspoken hopes, so many silent disappointments, so many smiles you wore like armor. And still, you made others feel safe. You made people feel seen. You made moments matter. But now it's time to make space for yourself. Because here is what she said next. And this is what shook me, she whispered. I think they've been everybody's healer, everybody's light. But I wonder when someone will sit with them and just ask, how's your heart? So I ask you now, how's your heart, dear one? Not your schedule, not your productivity, not your outer life, but your inner world. Is it weary? Is it waiting? Is it ready? Because the conversation she's having, It isn't just about nostalgia. It's a message. From life, from spirit, from the part of you that refuses to be forgotten. She sees that part of you rising again. You may not feel it yet, but it's already begun. And the moment you stop resisting, the moment you stop asking, what do they need from me? And instead ask, what do I need from me? Everything changes. She ended with a line I will never forget. One that I now pass to you, like a sacred torch. If they only knew how loved they really are, they'd stop doubting their own worth and start walking like the miracle they've always been. You are that miracle, and the story is not over. In fact, it's just beginning. Again. But before we part, before this message closes, she had one final thing to say. Not a memory, not advice, but a blessing. One final truth that could transform how you walk into tomorrow. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, like she didn't want the world to overhear something meant only for you, and she said, "Tell them." It was never about becoming someone else. It was always about returning to who they truly are. This isn't a story about what was said about you. It's a story about what still lives within you, because her conversation wasn't gossip. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even longing. It was love. Not the kind that begs to be held, but the kind that holds you, even in your absence. She wasn't asking for anything. She wasn't trying to rekindle or rewind. She was simply witnessing you, and speaking into the space where most people stay silent. That space where your soul still lingers. Tired, but brave. Wounded, but open. Quiet, but ready. Yes, you are ready to walk differently. Not faster. Just deeper, ready to speak with intention, not louder. Just more honestly. Ready to stop asking the world, who should I be? And finally whisper to your own heart, welcome home. So much of our lives are spent waiting for clarity, as if it will arrive like lightning. But sometimes clarity is not found in answers. It's found in the courage to pause, to listen, to feel what has been aching in silence. And she felt it. The ache in you. The ache to be understood without having to explain. The ache to be seen without performing. The ache to be loved without earning it. And she wanted you to know. They are already loved in ways they can't yet imagine. Not for their strengths, but for their softness. Not for their achievements, but for their essence. And that is your gift. Not what you've done, but who you are when no one's watching. The light that flickers but never fully fades. The voice that breaks but still speaks truth. The soul that falls but always gets back up, even if it takes time. So I tell you, with all the calm and clarity in my heart, you don't need to become someone else to be enough. You never did. And now, it is time. Time to walk like the miracle you are. Time to return to your quiet power. Time to trust that the conversation the universe has been having about you, through people, pain, and purpose, has always been guiding you home. And yes, she sees you. Still, she always did. And now, it's time you see yourself too. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not forgotten, you're becoming. Be gentle with yourself. Be still enough to hear your name being called, not by the world, but by your soul. And when you answer, not with words, but with presence, that's when the journey truly begins. Right here, right now. You are already enough. You are already loved. You are already home.